It's time to rock and roll!
Oh my God, it talked to me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, are you not super familiar with Zoom?
No, not anymore. I've been using StreamYard before most of this. So when it's like this meeting is being recorded, I was okay. Thank you, AI.
Yeah, I mean, you just know someone somewhere was like recording a lot of stuff they weren't supposed to, and so like for
Uh-huh.
legal purposes, Zoom has to be like we have to tell people when they press the record button now,
I
otherwise we're
concur.
liable. Wait, so what's StreamYard like? Because I know a lot of people use it. My buddies over at In Session Film use it. Yeah, a lot of
I don't
people.
mind it. Yeah, like it works. I was using it through the pandemic, basically, because a lot of how we were operating, whether it was Schmodown related, whether it was the podcast I do with Paul, even when I was doing stuff for like my own channel back through all that, we were doing watch alongs. It was great because everything was just there. And it seems like it's only gotten better with time. I don't use it really as frequently. Um, Outside of when Paul's like, here, we need to talk about a movie. And, he throws me a link and I show up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
And
try that for the podcast because
it's
like
it's nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially for like live stuff.
Yeah.
We what do you use right now? We use Restream, which is very good and easy, but you have to pay to get rid of that little logo and everything. And
Yeah. That's
but
how StreamYard is. We have to pay for it to make sure that it doesn't have the little duck logo and stuff.
okay, okay.
That's how they
Maybe,
get you.
yeah, maybe there's just no fucking winning here.
There's not, they just like our money, and that's fine. Like I guess I get it, but also down with the capitalist society.
Yeah, what an intro to this podcast about Indiana Jones. And this is about the Indiana Jones video game and the Great Circle. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me today is not my co-host, Gina Versa. It's our very special guest, Patrick PJ Campbell. How are
Hello,
you?
everyone. It's good to be back. It's been a little while. Like
It has been way too long. Way
way too.
too long.
I mean, we talk almost daily and send voice memos to each other, but like we haven't done this in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, like for the general public
Yeah.
rather. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think we do it for ourselves. Um
Correct.
Gene was the one who wanted to talk about this game and everything. He set up the whole show and then he ended up not being able to do it today. So he was like, you
Uh,
guys can go without me and we feel bad. But I do think it's important to bring that up because it's like you and I do this all the time.
yeah.
And then when you mentioned before like I started recording that Gene had like, okay, we have like an outline schedule, like time, like we're gonna try to stick to these times. And you rightfully brought up that like, yeah, our voice memos like alone, they're like podcasts just for each other. Just
Uh-huh.
like
Well, wasn't it? I think our buddy Mike, who's in a group chat with us, he's brought up his girlfriend's like, "What are you guys doing? Like, why aren't you just podcasting?" It's like, well, we are to each other.
yeah, it's just for us. It feels more special that way,
Yeah.
you know?
So now you guys get to see it in glorious 4K or listen to it on, Apple iTunes, iCloud, whatever. What do the kids use these days to listen to podcasts? I don't know.
SoundCloud and Spotify, if you're our
Okay,
listeners, apparently. Shout out
perfect.
to occasionally our most viewed stuff comes from like Ireland or something, and I'm like, okay, I
I
don't
mean,
know who's there. So if you're out there, if this is you listening right now, thank you.
yeah.
And if you're on the YouTube version, you can go join our over 1,000 subscribers and keep us going, keep us going up. And if you're on YouTube, you see my face, which is the result of fighting Nazis. No,
Yeah.
be careful running around the pool, kids. Kids are not
Especially on the 4th
joking.
of July.
Yeah. Well, Fourth of July week. Here's the thing: it wasn't even on the Fourth of July. I
I was
was
really trying to give you an out.
no, no, because I got to plug other stuff I was on this week. I was on so
Okay.
much. Two of them already out. One will be out the day of this episode dropping or day after. I was on our buddy show's Kale to talk about the original Superman
Kale.
movie.
Miss
Yeah,
that guy.
yeah, Kale's great. Go listen to that when it's up. I was on an episode of Director's Watch over hosted by Ward's Watch. We'll talk about Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall, which is my favorite of his
Nice.
science fiction films. Great conversation. Love those guys. Got to get them on the show at some point too. And also In Session Film, where the immediate result of this almost stopped me from going, but I was like, no. They asked me to come on for 28 years later, and that was such an that's such an important
Yeah.
movie for me. I was like, and I love those guys, so I was like, I gotta do it. So I look like a crazy person on that show because this had just happened, and I was like, I need to be there. So I'm just like, I'm trying to like compose myself constantly. But it was a good conversation, and those guys are saints.
I
Go
love
check
those
it out.
guys.
Yeah.
They're awesome. And I love that you're like doing that. And especially for 28 years later, because you and I talked about that a lot, like going back and forth. I'm finally seeing it tonight, by the way.
Oh
I,
yes.
I just, I've had no time, you know. And I say that as someone who made time to go see Jurassic World Rebirth, which I probably should have just seen 28 years later, but like I was trying to give benefit of the doubt and shit. But like, dude, that movie, we waited so long for this sequel. We've been waiting for so long, and I'm so glad that Boyle did it.
Yeah. Um, it's some people are calling it his best movie already. I don't agree with that, but I think maybe one day I will be able to be like, okay, I can at least see that.
Sure.
I've made it clear, I think, that I love it regardless. It doesn't need to fill that void for me. That's 28 days later. Nothing's touching that. It's too totemic.
Yeah,
But
it's very
28 years is it's an incredible film. It's my number two of the year after Sinners, which these two
which is
movies alone, like, this is the best movie year for horror in like forever. Um,
I
is
just want
indie
more of those guys, man, doing that stuff.
No, I do too. Yeah, I want people taking wild swings with properties. If we have to have a lot of like sequels and such like that, like take wild swings. Do you think Indiana Jones has taken wild swings in the past, my friend PJ?
I absolutely do. In quite a few different ways, depending on how you want to look at it. We've talked a lot about. So I grew up. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see. Like, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm straight up like in all my Indiana Jones stuff right now because, like, I love the property. Indiana Jones is my favorite. I have a fucking Dial of Destiny tattoo on my right calf. So
Did I know that? Hold on. Did I know that? I don't know
I
if I
thought
knew
you
that.
did.
I mean, you probably did send a picture a
Yeah,
while back when it happened, but
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, I actually do, and I know that it's like the hottest of hot takes, and but Diego knows, like, so that top 10 of the decade thing was going around, and I straight up put Dial of Destiny like right towards the top of my list, and people think I'm crazy, but like it takes wild swings. Crystal Skull takes wild swings. It's a sci-fi film. It's not an adventure serial. Young Indiana Jones was a wild swing because like it was kind of adventure but it was really more being used to like teach kids history. They would always find ways to like change the narrative of what the movies could be. People get so stuck on, rightfully, don't get me wrong, I love the first three, but like it could be more than that. And it seems like every time they try to be more than that, people get upset at it. And it's arguably one of the most frustrating things that I deal with when it comes to this property.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the direction of Crystal Skull is remarkable. I think the
Mm-hmm,
writing of Dial of Destiny is very strong.
mm-hmm.
I wish those two elements could meet on both films. But I'm with you. I thought I was gonna hate Dial of Destiny, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
I
Like,
fucking love Dial. So not like my buddy and I, Paul, we do a podcast called Two Middle-Aged Geeks on Film, and we covered all five of the movies. And our podcast about Dial of Destiny is like 2.5 hours, and me being like, "Let me tell you why this is amazing. Like, I will make you love it."
you have like a manifesto for that movie, and I know you do because we talk
Yeah.
about it quite a bit. Yeah, but before we get more into Indiana Jones, yeah, what else you got going on, PJ? Tell us about yourself.
Honestly, I just do a podcast now with my buddy Paul. He was the co-writer at the Schmodown with me when we were writing questions and stuff. And through the pandemic and through that show, we just got to the point where we were like, we just spend time on calls. We should just record it. And so now we do a podcast called Two Middle-Aged Geeks on Film, where we break down franchises and we go movie by movie, talking every installment. As we just, it started as a horror podcast and it evolved. Like we do all the John Wick movies. We've done Lethal Weapon. We've done Indiana Jones, but like we've done all the Halloweens, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Go and listen. Go have fun because there's hours of content of us just talking about movies. And if you enjoy listening to me, or if you don't and you just want to hate listen, that's fine too. But like it's there. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. We're everywhere.
Yeah, and I have become more acquainted with your old Schmodown pals.
Oh yeah,
Obviously, I'm doing the song covers right now for our boy Alex Marzonia.
Alex.
Yeah, so go check out Marzonia on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you listen to your music on. I would hype up his music, even if I didn't photograph the covers for his singles this year. Janine the Machine, Brandon
Mm,
Hanna,
I love them.
Sabrina
I miss all of you
Ramirez.
guys, man.
Yeah, they're I'm getting to see them of more than I did when the Schmodown was happening over here, frankly. But
Wow.
yeah.
And then I
It,
left, and everyone was like, "Let's all hang out more." And I was like, "Well, I'm in Arizona now, so there's that."
yeah, but Arizona's looking good on you, you know?
Ah,
Like
thanks, man.
you're still out there, you're still making moves. You still got your
Yeah.
pets, you still got your Stitch over there.
Okay. I do the thing, and that you can't see my dog's in the back. She's asleep behind me because I've got a good office dog.
No, well that's good. Better than dancing on the keyboard like my cat does sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
don't
love her
let my
though. It's
cat in
fine.
here. You've met Buddy. He's an
Yeah.
asshole. I just don't let him in here. It's easier
Yeah,
because
that's
he'd do the
probably
same
for the
shit.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Gene and I went down to visit you, yeah, I think there was like one time like I left the door open and he just like kind of walked into the room and I was like, "All right, do you want to hang out, cat?"
Yeah. And he sure does.
Yeah, I was like, "I want to go to sleep. Do you want to chill? What's going on?"
He's all, no, I want to dance on your chest.
Yeah.
Hello. You're like, no, that's not what I
Yeah.
want. He's such an asshole. I
Oh,
love him though.
yeah. Behind you, you also have your library
I
of
sure do.
your library of Alexandria of cinema.
Yeah.
And comics and games and television shows. So you kind of covered all the categories of what Indiana Jones has been, even though a lot of people may not know that. Obviously we're here to talk
Mhm.
about the Great Circle a little bit, but like you brought up the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles,
Yeah.
which is
Which I
like
love.
yeah, seminal for us
Yeah.
especially. I rewatched it all before Indy 5 and
Nice.
it was a real treat and I was like, man, a lot of this stuff is like really great and like even like the wonkier stuff it's so specifically George Lucas and like what he's
Uh-huh.
interested in and like
Uh-huh.
what he just is loves about history and genre and I'm like God, like these three episodes are like spy movies. He fights Dracula in this show. I don't know if people
Dude,
know that.
I don't think that
Like
they do. I mean, like they don't realize he was in like World War One. And they have
yeah.
like the whole like World War One setting. Then there is the spy series, and then there's like the Al Capone episode, like him
Oh
dealing with
yeah.
Al Capone and before Elliot Ness, and like Elliot Ness being in it is so good. Oh god, dude, you're right. It is at its wonkiest when Lucas is being the most George Lucasy, but I actually don't mind it because it's kind of fitting of all the characters for it to be is indie, and we got to credit him too. People forget Harrison Ford was on one of the like in one of the episodes. He was in it while he was making The Fugitive, and it's the one time we get to see Indy with a beard, and it's awesome.
Yeah, no, it looks cool. He
I
looks
want
so
more of
cool
that.
still.
Yeah, I kind of was hoping that when they did Dial, that he'd grow a beard out for it, and like Indy, like as an older man with like a white beard and shit.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
I know not that I'm mad about it. Don't get me wrong. I think he looks great as it is, but like could you imagine if we had had an indie film where he actually had the beard, like, and just go like full old man indie?
It would have been cool.
Yeah.
I think you and I are kind of proponents of, and Gene to like everyone's credit. Like we all kind of want an animated series,
Yes.
right? Like it's just he
Uh,
is so tied to Harrison Ford for like adult indie that I don't I don't think it's a James Bond thing. I don't think you can really replace him, but you can do an animated show.
yeah.
You can do adventures like that and play around. And you can also do, I saw that too with the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. She 100% sneezed. I was,
Oh,
bless you, son. Thank
bless
you.
you, dog.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like you can keep the tone and like the adventure spirit of the young indie stuff too. And I mean, to that show's credit as well. Like it wasn't always like, all right, now they ride off into the sunset. Like sometimes it was like a character like dies because they're in World War One. It's like it's not like there's
Yeah.
like no good message from it. It's just like no, it sucks. They were like young and they died way too soon because war is shitty.
Yeah.
and it's designed for profit by people who will never step foot near a battlefield. Or like, I mean, this is kind of a spoiler, but whatever. No one's seen the show yet. But like one of his close like friends throughout the show, like the way they wrap up that arc, like they're so tight the whole time. Then by the time they like get to the end after the war, it's like, well, now he doesn't really know how to live in
Yeah.
society anymore. So he's gonna go chase treasure forever. And it's like, oh, that's like what Indy could become if he's not careful as an adult,
Hmm.
you know? And
And
it's like sad.
it is, it's sad, and it's so interesting because like ultimately it's kind of what becomes of his character in some capacity, right? And that's the one thing that I think that actually even Great Circle does something with it, but Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny really lean in on the like loss of self and what happens in that. And I really, really appreciate that because I think that people forget that, like, yeah, they love the character, but he's always kind of been a screw up. It's who he was. He was never like great at what he did. He's the hapless hero, and that's why, like, there's the whole Raiders couldn't have happened without him. I hate that argument, but like, it's also true that he's not like the world's best hero. He's just kind of a guy, and he was falling in and out of relationships with people. It's hard for him to keep anything down because he's always on the run, he's always on the move, and he became obsessed with that stuff. And that's why I like that the character was always pushed forward to that capacity. It was like he tried, he wanted a relationship, but like the truth was is that everything that happened with his dad rang through all the way to the end of his life. And I've always appreciated that.
Yeah, I do too. And I think I want to address the Raiders complaint really quick because I
Please
think
do,
this
because
is
I hate it.
important. Yeah, I hate it too because it's like that is such a systemic problem with as a screenwriter myself. I don't want to shit on the entire community because there's so many great people, but I do
Mhm.
think online film criticism and screenwriting criticism sort of veers in this way of like, well, does it affect the plot? Like, I'm watching this for the plot. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, you might think you are. I think the plot is like the result of the narrative that happens, and that's the way we describe it. Wikipedia has plots. Wikipedia is not watching a movie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yes.
so when someone says, like, oh, well, they didn't need him for the Nazis to be defeated in that movie. And it's like, well, I, I guess a little bit, but also who cares? And then two, like the most important thing is that his character had to go through a journey. He had to see like
Exactly.
how like small and insignificant he can feel in the face of history and like, you know, treat the stuff with more respect. You know, he's more mercenary at the beginning of that movie, you know? And then
Yeah,
now
and
he
it's
has like he holds it with such high regard. By the end he's calling um the government stooges that hired him like, you know, bureaucratic fools and stuff like that. And it's like that's a huge deal.
mhm.
And the fact that there was such a movement of like, ah, well, you know, you could take him out of the movie. It's like, no, 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 no. You're not watching the movie then. You're script watching, which is
People,
not the same thing.
it's the problem with current social media and like people deciding that they want to be smarter than the things that they watch. And I'm not
Yes.
saying that you need to blindly watch shit and be like, oh, there's not problems with a movie. Like that, it's not what I'm saying. But there's this idea that you need to be smarter than the movie that you're watching that drives me nuts. And people are always trying to be like smarter than the movie. And it drives me crazy. And then it like really took off in pop culture because Big Bang Theory did an entire episode about it. And it was like, what are we doing? And this is why I hate that show so much because it's not a show about nerds that loves nerd shit. It's a show about punching down at nerds and making fun of the shit that they like. And it's God, I have very strong feelings about how people think we as like geeks and nerds interact with shit and the way that it punches down at them for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that show. I haven't
Yeah.
thought about that show in so long, actually. So that was a blast from the past a little bit for me.
Uh,
That was my own opening of the Ark of the Covenant, if you will. But yeah,
as
all that stuff is stupid, and they're not paying attention to the actual movies.
No, and
There's
people
more
just
than
don't know how
just.
to interact with that anymore. Like weirdly enough, so I go to the theater as much as I can to see stuff because to me, theater is still church. Like that's my church. We go, we hang out, we have a good time, praise the film gods. Until you look over and people are sitting on their phones while you're watching a movie and they're just not even interacting with the thing up on the screen. They're more bothered by the thing in their hand that's a screen. And you're like, this is why people don't interact with these things and understand it. They're not even paying attention. Like they're not even trying to anymore. They're more just on their phones while shit is happening. And it's so frustrating and it's so aggravating because I feel like so many of the times the things that you hear people talk about as like problems in movies, it's all explained if you're actually interacting with it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the time it is like we have our feelings about the way
Mhm.
movies are produced nowadays, but like if you just pay attention, a lot of the times, yeah, it's explained when like someone leans over to someone else and like, "Oh, what's that?" And it's like, well, let's watch the movie and find out. If
Yeah,
it's a problem that is not explained at the end of the movie, we'll talk about that too. Or it's
right.
something ambiguous, like that's not a flaw. Like,
No.
yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. I think that's why the indie stuff is so kind of magical. It's like it does scratch the itch of like the immediate narrative, like structured story adventure, but it's also got like these bigger, bolder ideas that can kind of just happen
well, yeah, and
anywhere.
I think so. And I think that's why, to your point earlier, when you were like, we've been proponents for an animated series for so long, I don't understand how they haven't jumped at that, especially in a world where like Clone Wars did such a great job of being the like serialized Star Wars adventure that like Lucas always kind of envisioned, right? Like
Hmm.
a legitimate 30-minute serial. Like I imagine George Lucas putting something like that in theaters in the 40s, where it's like you go and watch a 30-minute episode of that and you're like, oh my God, what happens next? That's what indie was born out of. How is this the one thing that we haven't done where you could expand that world and do that like exact thing, get that magic, get that awe, get that excitement of the MacGuffin and the chase and the adventure?
Yeah, I don't get it. It's like they tripled down on the live action streaming shows for Disney Plus,
Yeah,
and I like one of them. No, you know what? No, I'm gonna be very kind. I like three of them
yeah,
quite a
right.
bit, and they just I don't know. Like they just stopped. The only one left is Ahsoka.
Hmm.
That's the only one they're gonna be moving forward with for a while. I think that's kind of out there, right? Like they might do one or
Yeah,
two more, but like that's basically done. Tony Gilroy just came out and was like, "Yeah, they told me streaming's dead, so they got to cut money from the second season." I was like, "That dude just saying shit now. Like, holy shit,
I
awesome."
love that. I love how open he is.
No,
It's
he's the
incredible.
best.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's my hero.
the
And
best.
it's like what are they gonna do? Fire him now?
Right.
Like
He's already done the thing. Like it's
yeah.
fine.
Um, but even he was saying like, look, like what they're cooking up at Lucasfilm. Like, I'm excited to see. Like, and he doesn't have to say that, which is why I kind of like. He's not a guy who would say that if he
Right.
didn't believe that. He went on to praise Skeleton Crew, which I've also praised. Did you ever see that, by the
I
way?
did. I need to finish it. I got about halfway through and then life.
Yeah.
But I liked everything I saw, which was nice because I was so down on a lot of the Mandoverse stuff going into
Yeah, because well, that stuff's bad. So that's
it.
that's why. Um, I
Well,
will not be
season three
polite there.
especially was not good.
Yeah, again, I'm trying to be nicer, but like
I know, I
that
know.
was just embarrassing. But yeah, Skeleton Crew was like so exciting and fun, and tonally, kind of what you'd want for like a Indiana Jones adventure show.
Hmm.
Like similar vibe. It's got more adventure, like pulp adventure, than like spiritual Star Wars stuff. And I like the spiritual Star Wars stuff.
Me too.
Naturally, the Acolyte and is one of my preferred of the Star Wars shows, and even that one's like a little like very flawed. 8 episodes. It's tough to do a show in that, but I was like, yeah, I want more of that, and they were like, no, and I was like, well, what else you got? Andor and Skeleton Crew. Those
I'll
don't have
take
any
it,
of the spiritual stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, well, those are the best shit ever, especially
yeah,
Andor. So
dude. I can't get over how good Andor season two was.
yeah, we'll never get in something like that again on
No,
Disney
no,
Plus.
not even a little bit.
No.
Um, it's interesting too because I think you're right. Doing the animated series almost keeps like you can use the Harrison Ford look, and like we'll get into it with the Great Circle, right? Very obviously, the point of it being set between Raiders and Last Crusade and having it look just like Harrison Ford is so that when you're playing it, it just feels like the indie. And it's so interesting that like this whole character was born out of the idea that Spielberg basically could just never direct a Bond movie. And so Lucas is like, I got something better for you. But it was still born out of like, oh, we can recast it if we decide to keep doing it. And then they just never did. Even though, like, arguably Sean Patrick Flannery played the role more,
Hmm.
it's still like Ford's thing. And so I think that's why people have a hard time separating it. And it's the weird thing about the current culture of IPs being the way that they are, and especially at Lucasfilm, because they've also run into this when you look at Tarkin and you look at the stuff with recasting in general over there. They're generally very against that. Which was why I was pleasantly surprised in Andor season 2 that they were actually willing to do that, considering, the stuff with Bale. So it's strange in this world where it's like, I want to see more adventures. And now there's this rumor that's hit that they're talking about completely rebooting it from the ground up, which almost seems backwards at this point when there's so many other ways you could go about it. Like, I'd honestly be fine with trying to do more stuff where you filled in gaps. Like, there's a lot of time frame between Last Crusade and Crystal Skull, or even Crystal Skull to Dial, where you could use another actor, but I don't know if people will buy into it because it's not Ford, because he built the character. So rebooting it also seems weird though, because you're now not Indiana Jones. Then what? And I don't know how you reckon with that, which is why like doing an animated series almost seems like the best potential move, especially when Troy Baker exists and apparently can do the voice so spot on that I had to ask myself more than once, are you sure that it's not just Harrison Ford while I was playing the game?
It sounds so good.
Yeah.
I Troy Baker, I think, gets a little flack because he's like everywhere. That's not his fault. I think he's just very
He's talented.
talented. I will say, like, sometimes I'm like, probably could have gotten someone else for that though. Again, nothing against him, just like,
No, I get it.
maybe it didn't have to be him for it's what I always tell you about like Doctor Strange, where it's like, yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange, and it's like it's not wrong, but it's like, I don't know, you could have probably gotten someone else at the time, It's like,
100%.
yeah, nothing, and he's good, so it's fine.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
it's
just
fine. Like it worked out. It's okay.
yeah, and yeah, you're checking yourself quite a bit with him. And yeah, if he did the voice, or you even got like an adjacent voice for an animated show, like I think people would respond to it. I think they just have to put money into it, and it couldn't be that cell shading 3D stuff. I think you have to at least strive for it. The classical 2D look, even if it's
Mhm.
not true 2D, I think that's fine, but just something to harken back to the roots of the pulp adventure stuff. I mean, we growing up as kids, we had our pick of the litter from
Yeah,
adventure
dude.
shows from like Godzilla the series,
Men in Black,
Men in Black, Jackie Chan Adventures,
DuckTales, Pokemon, depending on how you want to look at it. Chip and Dale, like,
Chip and Rescue Rangers, yeah,
yeah,
man,
dude.
like and I'm
Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck, yeah, and I'm sure there's plenty of like stuff for kids to enjoy and watch. It's obviously not our purview anymore, but it's just it's like, oh man, like it's very much of a generation. This pulp adventure stuff. The Rocketeer,
Oh my God,
releasing
dude.
the retrospective on the Rocketeer this week. Everyone else who listens,
The Rocketeer. What?
yeah,
This
yes,
guy right here?
yeah, that one I did know. I
Yeah.
remember you had,
Yeah.
yeah, the Rocketeer, which is the best shit ever. Um,
The best Indiana Jones movie not featuring Indiana Jones.
yes, yeah, it's that, and then like.
And
Actually,
The
you know
Mummy
what?
99.
And the
And The Mummy 99.
Mummy. Yeah, there you
The
go.
best two
That's
Indiana Jones movies not featuring Indiana Jones.
yep, absolutely. Yeah, because that feels like um the response they had with Indy, where like, okay, we can't do Bond, let's do Indy. Let's make it
Yeah.
this thing. And Mummy feels like, well, I can't do Indiana Jones, so let me do the Mummy.
100%. And like even The Mummy Returns, for its faults, I do appreciate that it still feels like very pulp serially in all the
Hmm.
right ways. Like it's 100% just a dime store sitting at an airport, grabbing a paperback and being like, I'm going to read this on the flight. Like I don't necessarily think it's great, but it's so fun to watch because they're all having the time of their lives making it and it comes through.
Yeah, and that Sylvester score in that one is
Oh,
great.
dude.
I mean that's something that was a positive concern for me when we initially heard the announcements that this game was happening. I was like, well. good luck with that score, like
Yeah.
you can emulate Williams, but can you like live up to that is another thing. And then, it's just like, okay, well, like who's doing it? Because AAA gaming right now is, again, I'm trying to be more optimistic. I'm trying to be less
Yeah.
mean, but Jesus Christ, dude, if you're talking about like the death of like Hollywood right now, it's like games are speedrunning it to be like, we'll get there first,
Yep.
you know?
100%. But God, dude, Gordy Hab did it. Like it was funny when we got on the call, I had it on. I was listening to it before we
Nice.
started. And it because I think he also did the scores for Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. So
Which I
he's
have
getting,
not played.
oh dude,
Am I
you need
missing
to.
out?
You are. I
Okay.
think those games are, so we grew up in an era where we had so many cool Star Wars games. And we actually had a couple of really good Indiana Jones games too, but I think those two in particular, the I mean, you still are dealing with a lot of the fallout of like Order 66 and like there's a lot of that, but having it being like this one Jedi that was like a child who is now on the run and has all this PTSD and now he's in like this misfit band of heroes who are like kind of just right up the Empire's ass and like it keeps rubbing up on the stuff but then going its own direction. Like it's really cool. It's really fun. I think Cade is such a great character. I would love to see him in live action in some capacity. I mean, it's not like Cameron Monaghan doesn't act, so like you could do it if you wanted to. But it's fun as shit, dude. And I think you'd like him. I think the stories are awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I need to give those a shot. Because here's the thing about this game. I ain't gaming that much anymore.
I get it.
It's some of it's price tag, some of it is just like, well, I'm not super interested in a lot that's coming out. And sometimes I hear stuff and I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm not interested. I'm not gonna call it anything in specific here. It's just it's tough industry. A lot of blame to go around and a lot of people who don't deserve blame getting blame.
Mhm.
But it's like I'm it's a bigger commitment than going to pay for a ticket to go to the movies.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
it straight up is, man. I mean, so in this game in particular, like I'd been out of gaming for a little bit, until about the last 8 or so months. I finally started being like, man, like I had played Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor had come out and had been sitting, and I was like, well, I should probably play it because I really like the first one, but I replayed the first one and I started gaming a little more. And I'm realizing most of the time when I game, it's based on stuff that I already like. So a lot of the Star Wars stuff, if it exists, I'm probably going to play it. And the indie announcement had been kicking around for a little bit, and then it finally got dated. And I was like, well, I don't have a system that's going to play it. So I straight up drunkenly ordered an Xbox and pre-ordered the game so that I could play it when it came out. Like that, because it was indie, I was like, I'm gonna play it because it'd been a long time since we'd had an indie game. Like we had Staff of Kings in the 20 late 2000s, early 2010s, and it was not very good. And before that, I couldn't tell you. I think it was Emperor's Tomb, and then probably Infernal Machine. And Emperor's Tomb was super fun. If you never played that, that was a PS2 one. For a little while, it was on the Xbox store. I don't know if you can find it anymore, but that was like it was such a fun game.
Yeah, I missed the window on that one, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like one of the it was the first time I was like, "Oh, they really got it." Like Infernal Machine was close. It was that one though. Like
Uh,
that one I feel like was the pinnacle until now. This was the one because I again, I've been indie's been in my blood since I was a kid. It was one of the first times that my parents showed me the movie and my mom kept trying to cover my eyes at the end of Raiders and I was like, no, but I want to see, like, let me see what's
no, she's
happening.
trying to
All those
protect
people's
you.
faces are melting, like that
Yeah.
whole thing. um but like I read all the comics. I have I have the entire run of the Marvel comics, both as like tiny omnibuses, but also like I have just like the single issues. I've collected them over time. I have all the Dark Horse stuff. I've read all the Bantam novels that came out in the 90s. I love the character. I've always loved the character. So anytime there's something new indie, I'm like, I will find a way. Doesn't matter how, I'm going to find a way to read it, play it, watch it, whatever it is, it's happening. So I was legitimately at Disney World and I went, looked at my phone, been drinking, was in line for Dinosaur, where the new Indiana Jones attraction, funny enough, is going to be going. And I went, today seems like a good day to buy a new Xbox and the new indie game so that it'll be at the house when I get home. And that's what I did.
Nice. Yeah, we can just get into it. Yeah, this game is terrific.
Oh, it's so
Um,
good.
I was a little concerned when the first showing of footage was like the first person perspective, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that with this
Yeah.
character. Um, Boy, was I wrong. Good gameplay is just good gameplay, and it's hard to come by these days, in my opinion, at least from my perspective.
Hmm.
And it's so like generic to say this, but it's like, oh, you really feel like the character you're playing. It's like, yeah, it's the point of video games. But here's the thing, you do feel like
Yeah,
Indiana Jones.
you do. You straight up do. And like it's done in a way that makes sense, but also like it's because there's a lot of third person stuff in it too. And there's also so much storyline. I think if you watch it on YouTube, because someone has like tried to edit it into a movie, it's 5.5 hours. And you
That's
don't
awesome.
realize just how much of that is just cutscenes. Like they had to leave some first person stuff in just to like bridge a couple of gaps, but like there's probably about 5 hours of actual footage in this game that consistently also reminds you, yes, in fact, you are Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and I was kind of worried about it being like a run and gun type situation when I saw that stuff. But no, because Indy's not a run and gun character.
Mhm.
Like yeah, there's there's some bullets flying and such, but it's a very different sort of gameplay than I had initially expected. And what is your history with the with Bethesda, for example?
Uh, very little. Like I've played a couple of the Wolfensteins, but I've never like finished them. If I'm being
Okay.
totally honest, not in a bad like, not because I don't enjoy them. It's just unless I sit down and like really set time aside for a game, I don't always get a chance to play it. I've always liked what I've seen from them, but this was the first time I finally played a Bethesda game, and I was pretty impressed actually.
Okay, yeah. So there's different like avenues of Bethesda. There's like the Fallout, Skyrim, recently
Oh, that's right. They did
Starfield.
Skyrim. Yes, I've played Skyrim. I will give.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
fair.
but that's a different side of Bethesda. That's not the
Right.
Bethesda that ran this one. That's the Todd Howard Bethesda.
Okay.
And that's the guy who's responsible for like Starfield, which is supposed to be like their space version of Skyrim and Fallout, and didn't quite hit the mark for a lot of people, it seems like. I haven't played it, but it sounds like,
Hmm.
oh, you can't do that anymore. You gotta level up a little bit, and he didn't. Um, and I like Fallout. Imperfections and all, I really like Fallout. And Skyrim is just the greatest. This is not a dig. I mean this with nothing but love. 5 star, 10 out of 10, A plus. Skyrim is the greatest walking simulator of all time.
Yes, correct.
It is.
100%.
It's a blast. I find it to be a blast. But this is the Bethesda, yeah, responsible for like the Wolfensteins and Doom and Doom Eternal and Doom Dark Ages, which I've not played.
I have not
Um,
either. I've
I
heard
hear
it's
it's
great.
great. Yeah, I heard it's great. Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 are fucking awesome. So I've no doubt, you know what I mean? But
Right.
um, even though I think there's I tried playing Doom Eternal again, the lead up to Dark Ages, and I was like, maybe I'm getting older, but I'm like, this is a lot. I
Yeah.
don't know where my eyes are going, and I'm the one with the controller. Like, hang on. Um,
It's so funny because you're not wrong. And so recently, I finally got a Switch too, and I've been replaying Ocarina of Time on it. You know why? Because it has an N64 emulator. And then I try to play new stuff, and it's the same thing where I'm almost overwhelmed sometimes. I'm like, there's a lot going on. Like, I haven't played any of the new Resident Evil games because every time I see videos, I'm like, there just seems to be too much happening. Enough that I think I'd be frustrated.
okay, wait. So you haven't played 7 or 8 yet?
No.
Okay, 7. People are not like exaggerating. Like I was shocked when I finally played it. 7 is more like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre simulator. You just happen to stumble into the house.
Okay.
It's that game is fucking great, and
Is
it's
it? Okay.
legitimately fucking scary.
Okay. Because I felt like 5 and 6 started to lose their way.
Oh no,
And
big time, big time.
yeah.
And so 7 was like, okay, 6 was like a Michael Bay movie. Let's strip it down. What if he just did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, um, Saw, and you do end a little Resident Evil-y, but even that one, it's like, okay, it's a final set piece that gets a little
Right.
big. everything else is like you're crawling through like tunnels without like weapons for early portions of the game. Like
Interesting.
it is such a stripped down narrative. The gameplay is so simple. Like
Okay.
I was really shocked that that was the route they took for
Yeah,
that game. And I haven't played 8 yet. I made the promise to myself that I was going to play it live on the Waffle Press so
I
I could,
love that.
yeah, for the first time. So I'm going to replay 7 live and everyone can make fun of me for being bad at puzzles. Then I'm going to play 8 live for the first time, not having been spoiled somehow for the last 5 years. And then yeah, 9 comes out next year and then everyone can react to me also being bad at puzzles there.
Yeah. Great. I look forward to doing that. Also, I'm going to have to play them. I think I'm going to make like put some time aside and pick them up, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I really go to bat for 7. 8, I hear is just as good, so I'm very excited about that. But
Okay.
yeah, similar thing with like the Great Circle. Like it's not like a crazy like oh here's what the tech can do. Let's go show off like as much big budget shit as possible. Like they really just made like a good indie story,
They
you
did.
know?
Like legitimately, and I think it helps that to your point, they were very smart. It's not a run and gun type of thing. Like there's a lot of puzzle solving. There's a lot of espionage type stuff. That was actually my favorite thing, especially in the like the Vatican set era or portion of the game. There's a lot of you having to be very careful, like very making sure that the black shirts don't see you and doing all this like kind of just bouncing around the Vatican very quietly. And it really made you feel like Indy because he's always done the disguise thing. So in doing that, you have to be doing that, like wearing the disguise, trying not to trip people off that you're this not anyone that they know, even if you're dressed up like a padre or a father. Like I just loved that. I thought that was such a fun addition to it. And one of the things that makes this game feel like a true indie adventure is it's got a great supporting cast of characters. Like all the characters in this feel like real indie characters.
Hmm. I mean, to even go back to Dial of Destiny for a second, I remember some of the criticism being like, "Oh, these characters are supposed to have such a storied history with Indy. We never saw them before." And I was like, "Wait, wait, wait!
That's the
That's all the
point.
movies. They do that
Yeah.
all the time. Why is it a problem now? Is it just because we
I
know it's the last one with Harrison Ford? I don't think that's fair."
No, and I actually I thought that that was the thing that Dial did really well. Is that I felt like I really understood when Antonio Banderas sees him again for the first time, the reaction is so big. And I think the truth of the matter is it kind of comes back to the stuff we talked about earlier on, where like people are so precious about these movies, but the truth is that they don't want new. They want them to feel exactly like the first three, which means they wanted a movie where it was Indy and Sala and Marion. And like I know even John Reese Davies gets in the press and talks about how much he doesn't like Crystal Skull, and he's now started doing it about Dial. And he was like, I was led to believe it was going to be a different movie and all these things, but like at the end of the day, I'm never going to understand that because the movie is exactly what it needed to be. Sala's place in it is actually one of the best parts of the movie, and it's a reminder of how great the character is, while also letting letting Indy do this thing that he has to do. I always really enjoyed that he this in this one he was like, I don't want to involve you. Number one, we're too old to be doing this, but now you have this family. I don't have anything. Like, let me deal with this. Plus, it's his goddaughter. I need to deal with the situation. Let those characters be. And like, I liked all the new characters. I also, and I look, I know people don't like, oh, why did I just blank on Phoebe Waller Bridge that much? I don't get it, but I
Wait,
hear it
really?
all the time. Like, yeah, especially that character. And I don't get it because I think she's so terrific in that movie. And she's such a great, like, she's one of the best supports in those movies because she truly believes in Indy. Like, she might be trying to screw him over at times, but she truly believes in him still. And I really, like, I loved that because you don't see that throughout those movies. Not everyone believes in him the way that she does. And it's almost like us watching the movie being like, we grew up with you, man. Like, we believe that you can be bigger and better than this, and like you're going to be okay. And I kind of like that the audience surrogate was her character.
Yeah, I didn't know people didn't. I mean, I assume like
Uh,
some grifters didn't like her because she's a woman and you can't have those in movies
right.
anymore. Um, or black people, because then it's woke or whatever that means.
EI.
Which means we should have more of them, by the way.
Yes, correct.
But no, I thought she was great, and
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just like a non thing for my brain. I'm like so shocked right now. I'm like, no, no, I thought we liked all the stuff in the movie. It was
No,
just
no,
a
no.
debate whether or not it was kind of boring to watch sometimes. You know?
Unfortunately, to your point, the shit about grifters, it has gotten its way into like mainstream general audience because so many people don't realize how many of these people are doing that, and they watch that shit on YouTube and they just start regurgitating it. And I run into it in real life all the time, and I'm like, stop. Like, no, 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 no. I know where you're like, no, stop.
It just happened to me recently for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
I was at a friend's show, and then I was talking to other people there who I hadn't really met before. I was just there to support a friend, so I was like, we get talking. Naturally, pop culture stuff is often you and I
Yeah.
segue into the real world. So when we're talking about stuff like, oh, and they're like, oh, yeah, I love Star Wars. George Lucas had this all planned out in his mind. Which is why I'm not really a fan of the other ones. But I know people like them sometimes. And then I was like, okay, I don't need to get into it right now about how
Mhm.
I love George Lucas. He is a liar.
Yes.
I do love him very much. He does lie about that. There's just it's historically evident that he did not have this planned out from the beginning, and that's okay. I love him regardless. And then we got into Last Jedi, and I was just explaining that like I thought it was a very moving story about how even our heroes are still people, and we can all fail, and what happens in a world where we don't have heroes to look up to anymore because they've failed, and how we all have to be our own heroes, and that can even inspire our heroes. So we
Mhm.
become our heroes. And it's like, and they're just like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I just didn't like the casino stuff. And I was like, we're not doing this. But
Nope.
anyways, yeah, it's very prevalent. And I was like, oh, no,
Yeah,
that's gonna
dude.
take a minute to shake off, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with what I do now, because when I'm not doing this stuff, I bartend and I deal with the regular people on a daily basis. And it's amazing the amount of that stuff that makes it through. And I've had those types of conversations too. And it's like you're just not watching. Again, you're like not actually watching the things. You're watching videos about people watching the things, and then you're listening to them and just regurgitating the things that they're saying. You're not actually like supporting your own feelings and stuff. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's really the takeaway at the end of the day. Because like, look, even if someone plays this game and was like, it's kind of disappointed. I thought it was pretty fun, but like, not really an indie story to me. One, I wouldn't get it, but two, it's like, all right, that's fine as long as it's like your opinion. If it's
yeah,
like what you feel, no one can argue that. I could be like scratching my head and be like, what are you talking about? But if it's just what you feel, like that's not something I get to have an opinion on. It's not
no,
something I can debate
100%.
you on.
No, absolutely. And I gotta say too, like one, again, great cast of supporting characters like we were talking about. I mean, look, dude, you got Tony Todd in this. Number one, Tony Todd being in an Indiana Jones story. I never knew how badly I needed that. And Locus is such a great character for him, and he's so good in it. And I'm glad that he looks like him.
Yeah.
Like because I think of all the actors in it, I think he's the only one who actually looks like him. Like everyone
Hmm.
else is looks different than who they are on screen. But they very rightfully made Tony Todd look like Tony Todd as a giant. And I love everything about that. Locus is a great henchman type character because the indie movies, indie game, indie comic, indie book doesn't matter. There always has to be like the crazy henchman character that you're going to remember every time.
Yeah. I mean, what send-offs for his career between this and Final Destination.
Yeah.
Like, man, we were lucky to have Tony Todd as long as we did, and um, the man always fucking brought it. And it feels like, if he didn't get sick, maybe he would have found like another resurgence in the voice acting game. Because you and I watched The Flash when it was airing for
Mhm.
a while, and when he popped up as Zoom like 10 years ago now. Oh my
Oh,
God.
so good.
Um,
Oh my God, has it been that long?
Yeah. Yeah, season 2 starts in the back half of 2020 or 2015, so I remember that because I was obsessed.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, Tony Todd's voicing your villain on your TV show. Holy fucking shit, buckle up.
Yep.
And like between this and
Venom.
Venom, thank you. Yeah, I was like, what?
Yep.
I just, yeah, obviously I should remember that. Like, I feel like there's so much more. He had so much more to give, and I'm glad he got to have his send-offs um in such beautiful fashion, especially with Final Destination, of course, which is straight up just a scene for him to say goodbye to the audience, which is
Yeah.
very respectful.
Both of these, both this and Final Destination ended up having like truly interesting endings, all things being equal. And the Final Destination one in particular, especially because the directors even they came out and they were like, we tossed the script and said, just say what you wanted to say. And like you can tell he went off some of it and then goes totally off script. And you can see it in the faces of the actors who are realizing that what is happening. And I think it's actually like one, Bloodlines is way better than it had any right to be in any capacity.
Hmm.
But like that in particular, like I'm sitting there going, why am I getting teary eyed watching a Final Destination movie? Like, what's happening right now?
Yeah, it was that moment's very special, and I really liked the movie overall. I think I kind of softballed it
I
after I
think so.
first saw it. I think I was a little too defensive about the first three, and I still those are still my favorite. But
Oh, dude, they're the best.
yeah, Bloodlines is it's the best movie with the subtitle Bloodlines ever in human history.
100%.
For the record.
It'll never get touched either because God, it's just so good.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's great. Until they do Indiana Jones Bloodlines, of course.
Don't tempt them with a good time.
Yeah.
We'll find
Um,
out that he had a secret kid or something. It'll be the Creed effect.
what what do you think of the villain boss in this? Because Indy's
I
got some
love
great
Boss.
villains, and I don't think he's got any misses. I just think his lesser villains are sometimes like, okay, well they're not Belloc. You know,
Yeah,
it's
they're
hard to
not
match up to
Belloc. Like
Belloc.
I think people are a lot harder on Kate Blanchett in Indy 4 than they should be. Like
I agree.
I think she's actually a really great villain. She's super fun. But I really like Voss because he feels a lot closer to Belloc. Like he feels very interestingly almost like an equal to Indy, which we don't always see as far as the villains are concerned. And one thing he was really good at, and it was something again that I think kind of rings true to the franchise and the character, is towards the end they have a conversation and he spends a lot of time like digging at Indy and being personal, and he starts to bring up Indy's relationship with his father and the idea of Indy not being able to like, and now you worry about like this is part of why you've run from Marion and all these things. Like they really lean in on the breakdown of relationships in his life, and they even talk about the idea of him being too scared to have a kid. And again, like I don't know how much they knew making this game while Dial of Destiny was also being made, but like that rings so heavy in such an interesting way to the further that the canon will go, especially considering like this is the bridge to Last Crusade. So it also works as like just within those four films alone of like Temple, Raiders, this as a film, and then Last Crusade, like it just plays through that, but then even farther into Crystal Skull and then into Dial, where it's like, oh my God, like fucking Voss nailed it. Like he sees through Indy, he sees through that veneer of what he puts on, and I loved that.
Yeah, I'm looking up who wrote it. I actually didn't have this down, and I didn't have it in my mind to bring up what you just brought up, but I think it's a really good idea that it speaks to the real heart of the indie character and Lucas and Spielberg's creation and subsequent leaving it in the hands of other artists.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Spielberg has talked for a while about like how he stopped making like uh films about fictional heroes and he started adapting a lot of like biographical stuff because his statement was like, well, like the greatest heroes are the ones in the real world and stuff. Like very
Right.
like old school boomer sentimentality. Nothing inherently wrong with that. Nothing inherently positive about that. It's just a fact that
That's
he,
what he
you know,
sees. Yeah.
yeah, that's what he sees. And I find that actually to be quite beautiful in a way. And but that's why he leaves like Indiana Jones behind. He doesn't do Indy 5, you know. He did that's why he almost didn't do Indy 4. He's like, you know, George wanted
Yeah.
to do it. And it's like, you know, it's just more
And
complicated than
Harrison
that.
did
But
too.
and
Like,
Harrison, yeah.
yeah, he kept being pushed, and then Harrison still wanted to do more, and he was like, "Look, I'm not doing this again."
Yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
enough, man.
Yeah. And so the idea that like I see it almost as like Indy is this last trailblazer of a generation. And having Great Circle and Dial of Destiny back to back with each other. It's like this is the warning and the not comeuppance, but like this is the result of that. Great Circle is like,
Right.
this if you're here too long, if you're at the party too long,
Hmm.
it's gonna get a little empty. It's gonna get a little sad.
Yeah.
And I think there was also some criticism about Ford's character, Han Solo in Force Awakens, where I was like, well, he just kind of went back to what he was doing. And I think that worked for that movie, and I think it works for Dial of Destiny in a way where it's like they don't really have anything else because they fell back on what they had
Yeah.
because they screwed up or because things didn't work out the way they'd hoped they would. And it's not like a good thing that Han Solo is running around the Millennium Falcon by the middle of that movie again. It's like a little sad.
Hmm.
It's very sad when we were introduced to Indiana Jones and he's banging on the door of those goddamn hippies, which I love. Again,
I
I I,
think it's
I think that's a
perfect.
great introduction to him in that movie. Well,
It's
after the flashback, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, it's almost impossible to talk about this game without talking about Dial in some capacity because
Yeah,
they're
that's what we're
also
finding.
like, it's they play into each other in such interesting ways in the idea that for the people who had a problem with Dial not being the thing, Dial also gives you the thing. Like, to your point, the whole opening of that movie is 30 minutes of what this game is, basically, which is peak young indie. And Dial is smart in doing that because you need to be reminded how you loved the character in some capacity to get to where he is. Because we hadn't seen that indie in a long time unless you're rewatching the movies as much as we probably do. So like you need that up front. But I like that this game also leans on that while also it does look forward. It knows where this character is going, and so they instead of like shying away from it and going, we're just gonna do our own thing and pretend those didn't happen. They go, no, we're gonna lean in on it. We're gonna lean in on knowing that this is like the trajectory of that character, and like if we do this, we play into all of it. And I really appreciate that because I look, I'm not into the oh man that sequel was bad, it didn't end sort of thing. Like, unfortunately, they happened, and I always just kind of keep that in the back of my head. Unless you're Die Hard 5, go fuck yourself. So, like, there's very few times that I appreciate when a creator can look at a thing and go, it may not always work, but if I lean in on it in a certain way, I can bring it around. And so for them to do that here was very cool.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. If something maybe doesn't work for everyone, you're gonna have to find a way to incorporate that story into your franchise anyways. Like,
Right.
and I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about like how it relates to comics or books, but I do think like for referencing a mainline film franchise, like look, Rise of Skywalker is a controversial movie. You better acknowledge the growth Ray went
Yeah.
through in that movie. You know what I
You
mean?
have
Like
to.
you have to, and I think that's perfectly fine. I understand people brushing up against that, even if someone who's not crazy about that movie. Like you have to, and here like it gives it so much more weight. You're right. It makes it feel more important. It makes it more moving, knowing where it goes and how he gets there. And I don't know. It's just so much more bold. I feel like if you ignore it, you're a coward, like for lack of a better
Yeah.
term.
I mean, you're not wrong, right? Because at the end of the day, look, we both have our feelings about like Endgame and Infinity War and everything. But credit where credit's due. Marcus and McFeely were like, everyone hates Thor 2, but we're gonna make Thor 2 like wildly important to the bigger story. And you're like, wow, I hate you guys for doing that in some capacity, but you weren't cowards about it either. Like
Yeah,
that's good for you guys because like everyone hates that movie.
yeah. I mean,
It
that's my favorite part of Endgame is when they have to go back through the old movies to get the Infinity Stones. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like interesting. This
Yeah.
is fun. This is yeah, and acknowledge it makes sense for like that last movie to acknowledge everything that came before. So don't shy away from it.
No, and so I think this game too, like they very much looked at the original trilogy, then looked at where it goes and went, how can we find a way to just push it in all directions? And I think it really captures the spirit of all the movies in such a cool way, because in a video game world you can do just about anything, but we've had a lot of Indiana Jones games and they don't always feel like Indiana Jones. But this feels like, if you, again, if you pull the cutscenes out, you could just watch it as a movie almost, and it would be just as compelling. Like, the storyline is awesome. And for it, the big reveal, of course, of the Great Circle is actually them finding Noah's Ark is just such a specifically Indiana Jones type of thing that you're just like, of course it's Noah's Ark. Like, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, that I mean that's classic indie stuff right there. Um, Something we have to mention is the upcoming DLC, right? It hasn't been released yet, right?
No, not yet. I think it's, what is it, like September or October?
Remember? Yeah,
Back
yeah,
end of the year.
yeah, later this year. Um, we get more Tony Todd?
I hope so. I like, so we don't know a lot about it other than it's Giants DLC, right?
Hmm.
And it seems like the rumor is that the DLC is set during the game. And my hope is that means that since Tony Todd was a Giant, we get more Tony Todd. Like, one last Tony Todd would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, if they were holding on to that like that audio for that long, like props to them for just not like being like, oh look, we got more, and like withholding it out of
Yeah.
respect, basically. Like I commend them if that's the case. And if look, if they have to get another voice because he's no longer with us, like, I understand that too.
Oh, 100%. And like, no, there'd be no shade in that. There'd be nothing wrong with that, like, at all. Um, did you like the Gina character, by the way?
I did
I did
actually.
too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very picky, I guess when it comes to indie supporting characters. I know people really like Temple of Doom. I can't, man. I just I mean I like the direction of the movie. I like the action. It's just
I like the third act.
the third act is great. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just not. It's a roller coaster. It's a total roller coaster of a movie with just like the most horrific racist, sexist, like every ist possible. It's like it's a Michael Bay level like repulsive genre thing. But
Yeah.
the lead in that Willie, I
Sh-
dude,
Terrible.
she's so, they make her so dumb, and it's so
Yeah.
it's like so depressing. Um,
It's so frustrating,
yeah,
honestly.
and so like with indie leads, like it's difficult. I think it's very difficult. I think that's why it's like, okay, well, like ultimately you do bring back Marion for Crystal Skull and Dial.
Mm.
And Ilsa in Last Crusade is obviously very different because she's a femme fatale and then a Nazi also.
Mm.
So like, okay, you make it work there. That's exciting. The Young Indie has some really fun stuff with like
Amazing stuff, in
there,
fact.
yeah, there's a femme fatale. You get his very first high school girlfriend,
Yep.
which is like super funny. And then that's another that they even like they clearly have that idea there, like with George Lucas, anyways, like where he's gone, traveled the world, he comes back, he runs into her, and she's like getting married, and he's like to him,
Yeah,
like
right. Just shocked and going, I'm sorry, what happened?
yeah, but it's like, this
Yeah.
that lifestyle is making him miss out on human connections, and that idea's always been there with that. And yeah, but what did you think? What did you think?
I really liked her, and I like that, especially because the storyline really is dovetailing off the fact that Marion left. He didn't just like walk out on her. Like, this was bad. And he just kind of let it go. And Marcus even says you can't keep running from your problems, which in just Indy the watch me. I love that because again, it's how the character has become. Well, if a thing is that way, I'm just gonna keep ignoring it. I'm just gonna push it down. And so Gina is not a replacement character. She is like her own person who ends up in his story. And I really like their relationship because it's contentious at first. And she's able to push back and they butt heads a lot, but like they realize that they just work better together. And I really like all of that. And it's a really sweet storyline by the time everything is said and done because he also learns to care about her. But I do love that she's like, there's clearly someone else. and like you need to figure that out on your own. And I like that that also leads to, you know, again, that's the foreshadowing of it'll always be Marion. Like it'll always be Marion no matter what. But that works for me. And she's just like, I thought Alessandra Mastrati was just really fantastic.
Yeah. What was she in that I really liked her? Um, she was in Master of None for a season. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yes,
She
she's
has a
awesome
part
in it.
in. Yeah, yeah. I think you're a bigger fan of the movie than I am, but I do like it. And yeah, is that? Oh my God, is that it? I just recognize her from those two things. Well, she's
Yeah,
good.
she's
She's
very
very
good.
good. Yeah. So yeah, let's see. Well, what else? What else we could talk about
I
here?
mean, I just have to say I'm very impressed with Troy Baker. We haven't talked a lot about it, but the thing I have to say is it's a great performance and not just like a caricature. It's actually a good performance because he did the mocap, he did the voice work, and he does one of those things where he very much captures Ford's voice. It's almost eerie how well he does it, but he's also able to like replicate his own ways so that every time he hits the line, you believe it, but he's still delivering it his own way. And he doesn't just fully mimic the performance, he does his own thing. And I think it's really special. It reminds me weirdly of the Back to the Future game that they made a couple of years ago. It was a Telltale game and it was 5 episodes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, Michael J. Fox couldn't voice Marty in it, so they got someone else to do it, and he was so like good at capturing Michael J. Fox while still being able to do his own thing, and this really reminded me of that. Um, I would again, I'd listen to Troy if you did an animated series and had him voice it. I'd be totally cool with it.
Yeah, same here. I'm glad you brought up the difference between like impersonation and performance, because like there's a lot of people on, and this is not slight on anyone, because impersonation is its own form of talent. But like the idea that like, wow, that was such a good Robin Williams impersonation or something. You should star in a Robin Williams biopic. I would disagree with that sentiment. If people
Yeah.
know what I'm referencing, then you're older than the internet. But but if you don't, that's okay too. Just the idea that like an impersonation is not a performance. You have to emote, you have to live, you have to express as this version of that person, this character, and
Mhm.
um impersonation will get you far, but a performance will make you last. And yeah, man, I would play more games with him as Indy. And I don't know how big a hit was this game. This was a
It seemed to
success.
do a, it seemed to be a success enough that it keeps being rumored that they've already greenlit its second and potentially a third.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay.
my hope is that we're going to get that and we'll get more because I think that the people doing this really get it. Like they truly understood the world. They understood the character. Like what works for the character, what doesn't work for the character, how do we lean on it, while also being a video game allowed it to do other things. Like there's a crazy nightmarish dream sequence that you play through where the like you're back in the museum and the everything's kind of flooded and everything's like it almost looks like a David Lynch movie. Everything's like catawampus and looks strange and you have no idea what's really going on and you keep hearing all these voices. You can only really do that in a game while still staying true to like what indie is in spirit. And it felt like I was watching what I assume it must have been like to be in his head during Temple of Doom,
Hmm.
after he gets the blood. That's what it reminded me of. It like I like that side of it because they found ways to be interesting and do new things with the character that you could never do in live action while still staying true to like the spirit of what the character is.
Yeah, well said. Any final notes on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, or Indy in general?
Honestly, man, like if you haven't played the game, please pick it up. I think it's super fun. I think it's on most platforms now, which is great. Um, this is for you, Lucasfilm. Please, for the love of God, figure this out. I am baffled still that in the time that it's been since I've graduated from high school, you guys have not figured out how to literally do a lot with the character. We've had a single book in the time. since I've graduated, we've had 2 movies and 2 video games, no comics, no series, no anything else. I know that Harrison Ford is the guy. I'm glad we finally got this game, but like, please, for the love of God, figure out an animated series. Uh, you know what, man? I told Diego this before. Do a freaking audio series. Like, of all the characters to do as an audio drama, Indy is the guy. Again, just do like a monthly adventure or something. I don't know, but like, I love the character. I love this world so much. I don't. And look, if you start and you do a hard reboot, it is what it is. But like, I love how lucky we are to be alive to have this character who has spanned so many books, so many comics, so many movies, so many things. It is baffling to me that over the last 20 years, for how full of life this franchise could be, it just seems so like lifeless at times. And that's considering, again, I loved Dial of Destiny, I love this, but like, the reason that the audience didn't show up for that movie is not because it was bad. It's because you've given the audience no reason to care. Give the audience a reason to care again. Like, give them something. And I'm not saying that, it's just people have ADHD brains, man. We know that the other movies are good, but like, you got to give them something. Anything, please. I beg you. Give us more games, whatever it is. But I love the world. If you've never read any of the Dark Horse comics, I really recommend those. There's a lot of really great, like they're most of them are like 4 issue miniseries, some involving his dad, some of them just involving other characters. There's some really cool stuff. Check those out. The Marvel comics are a fascinating run if you can find them, because they're all based off the characterization from Raiders. So he hasn't evolved into like what the character has become. I always argue that Temple of Doom is the movie where Indy became Indy. Um,
Mm.
for better or worse, like,
Hmm.
again, because there's certain things in that movie where you're like, huh, okay, but like, that's the movie where the peak of Indy became the character, the look, the feel, the excitement, the adventure, the temple robbing, all of that stuff comes from that movie.
I can see that.
Yeah, and so like, it's interesting reading those Marvel comics where he's only based off the Raiders version of the character, where you're like, he's actually kind of a mean asshole too. Like, it's, he hasn't evolved yet. So check those out. Thanks for having me, man. I thank you for letting me just, you know, wax poetic about indie for like an hour.
No, of course. I mean, we could do a whole indie retrospective at this point.
Really
But
good.
yeah, of course, you're welcome back anytime. I mean, you're the podcasting OG. People. I don't know if newer
We
fans
can,
listen and
yeah.
know that. But yeah, PJ's a day one. Yeah, we literally do talk like basically every day. So like, it's a pleasure to do this with you on camera, over audio, however you listen to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Patreon, possibly. This episode will be up early on the Patreon.
Love it.
But yeah, thank you so much, PJ. This was great. Where can people find your work?
You guys can find me, as I said earlier, I do 2 middle-aged geeks on film with my buddy Paul. I think you can find us on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube. I'm sure I can send a link, or I'll put it in the comments below, but you guys can find us. You guys can find me over on Twitter. Yes, it is still Twitter to me, or Blue Sky, PJ_Campbell, pretty much every version of social media. I've managed to keep the handle. So we're doing okay. But yeah, that's it, man. I'm just happy to be here. I'm so glad we got to do this, because it's been way too long to just sit down and talk with you, bud. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we'll have to do it again sometime soon. We'll have to get Gene on.
Yeah,
We'll have
man.
to make sure he can make this one.
I feel bad still.
Yeah, we'll get him. We're gonna figure something else out. Maybe we'll have to do something for the DLC or something.
I mean,
And,
look, man,
and
call
yeah.
me. You know where to find me.
Yeah. We'll figure something out. We'll figure something out. But as always, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. We have been professionally unprofessional.